No, I am not Starla McDermott. She's edition off. I'm Phil Tower, station manager at WYC Community Radio, and we are located here along with GRTV in the Community Media Center on the beautiful near west side of downtown Grand Rapids. It's always my honor and pleasure here on City Connection to be here with Mayor Rosalynn Bliss as we take a look at some of the great things happening in the city of Grand Rapids. Lot to talk about on this episode. We'll also introduce you to business developer with the city of Grand Rapids. He is AJ Hills, and I know you're going to enjoy hearing from him, so stick around for that. Mayor Bliss will have a conversation with AJ, and then I get a crack at AJ, and I've got the toughest questions he's ever faced on live television coming up. We're just kidding about that. First of all, Mayor Bliss, it's great to be with you again. Welcome to City Connection. City Commission Night Out, that's always a great opportunity to connect with residents in every part of the city, each ward. Can you talk about Night Out? This is a City Commission meeting outside of your normal chambers. What is City Commission Night Out? And I know you're on location at Gerald R. Ford School, right?
Okay. We are. So I love our Commission Night Out. It's a long-standing tradition. We took a little bit of a hiatus during COVID, as you can imagine. Yes. So it's good to be back out in the community. And we did switch it up, the format actually, over the last couple of years. And so tomorrow night is our Commission Night Out. As you said, we'll be at Gerald Ford Middle. That's at 851 Madison Avenue. We start at 5:30, so that's different than our typical meeting. So doors open at 5. We'll start the meeting at 5:30. We have food available and refreshments available, so you can come and have dinner with us. We'll start the meeting at 5:30. I'll call it to order. It's an official city business meeting, so that part is the same. I'll call the meeting to order. We will open up with about a probably about a 20-minute presentation, just some city updates, and then we break and we go into a larger group, and we do small group discussions, so people can go to a round table, and then the elected officials and appointed officials, we sit at different tables, and we have conversations with community for about an hour, and then we come back together, and then we start going through our official agenda. A couple different things about our agenda is that we'll start off with public comments on any item, not just agenda items. So we just have one opportunity after the hour-long small table discussion for public comments, and then commissioner comments, and then we'll go into our consent agenda. We have one scheduled public hearing, and then we'll finish up. And we move the public comment period up to the top because by then people have already been with us for an hour and a half, and some people don't want to stick around till 9 o'clock at night to be able to give comment. So we try to kind of take our typical city business agenda, make that a little bit more condensed and have more time in having hopefully meaningful dialogue with individuals in our community.
Right, and that's not from sitting in the audience as a city resident looking up at all the commissioners. This is breakout session, as you said, a chance to be right across the table from a city commissioner to have a conversation one-on-one or maybe 3 or 4 on one about an important issue. Do they know what those issues or topics will be, or are those decided at the meeting itself?
Yeah, no, they can be about anything. So the last several, I've had folks talk to me about everything from public safety to streets to parking meters to parks and pools, and so people can talk about whatever they want us to hear about in those smaller group table, kind of round table discussions. We also have all of our city.
Terrific. And you do City Commission Night Outs throughout the year.
We do.
Check the City of Grand Rapids website for more information. We're coming to you live on Monday, June 12th, so this City Commission Night Out will be the meeting in June 13th at Gerald R. Ford Middle.
Yep.
On Madison Southeast. By the way, you can also check the city website for the other upcoming City Commission meetings and City Commission Night Out schedule. So we move on to something that has been front and center. Take home work for you. I know that because we talked recently on WYCE. The budget, city budget, passed with unanimous support. That's got to be a great feeling of accomplishment. Can you highlight for our viewers some of the main points or key things folks should know about the new budget for the city of Grand Rapids?
Yeah, thank you. So we just adopted it a couple weeks ago, last meeting in May. And the budget itself is over $600 million, and it includes funding for all of our departments, from water and wastewater to streets to parks to parking, public safety. And we spent about 6 weeks working through our budget. And some of the highlights that I'm really excited about is that it continues funding for our neighborhood match fund. We actually are taking applications right now through the end of the month. It has funding to continue our homeless outreach team, our mental health and behavioral health co-response team with our police department that was just started last July. So we want to expand that. It has funding for some of our park investments. So it has funding for the lodge that we have been wanting to build at MLK Park for a long time.
Right.
I'm hopeful to see that get over the finish line and get started yet this year. Funding for Plaza Roosevelt, the Roosevelt Park Lodge as well. So you'll see some significant park investments with the budget that we just passed. It has funding for the Third Ward Equity Fund. Again, that's a fund that we put together to really target support and investment in our third ward. So you'll see some of the priorities that we have laid out in our strategic plan funded. This wasn't a part of our budget. It was kind of an ancillary budget allocation that we also put $5 million into our affordable housing fund, and we voted in support of about $4.9 million of those dollars to support low-income and affordable housing projects. So again, investing in projects to get those started and help to fill that financial gap so that we have more housing units available to individuals in our community.
Which is a huge issue impacting every city across the country. So that's a real positive and hopefully impactful thing. I'm curious, Mayor Bliss, if someone is watching us thinking, I have an idea for funding for the next year fiscal budget, what's the best way for them to present that to you and city commissioners?
Yeah. So they can email us, they can call my office, they can send an email, as I said, to myself or the full commission, CC our city manager. They can show up to one of our meetings. We also, in addition to our commission night out, we have a lot of community meetings that we hold all month long, whether it's meetings on our master plan. There's a meeting tonight on the amphitheater. Last week we had the public meeting on drones. So there's lots of opportunity to come to public meetings and connect with your elected officials, and you can let them know that way. A reminder that for the budget process, because we are a manager-council form of government, the city manager is the one that actually puts the budget together in partnership with our CFO, so our chief financial officer, and presents it to the city commission. And then we work through the budget and can make amendments.
All right, good to understand the process.
Yeah.
And how can people find out more about the budget? Can they see that online?
They can, and what I really appreciate about our budget is we have a couple things that takes the 500-page document and condenses it into more digestible nuggets of information.
I like your phrasing.
So we have a citizen budget, which is, I think it's about 12 pages. Does a really good job of breaking down, like, where do we get our revenues from? Where are the expenditures? How are those spent? How much are we spending on personnel and legacy costs, benefits, pension, all of that. And then what departments get what amount of money of the overall budget. So you can find that online. We also have hard copies of that. You can call my office and my assistant will send you a hard copy if you prefer that. And then we also have a video that will walk you through the budget and the budget process. So if you want to see a quick, I think it's like 6 minutes long, 5 or 6 minutes, that is also really quite informative.
Terrific. So you've taken a 500-page budget, it's down to 12 pages, and that's what people can look at. Certainly, kudos on the SparkNotes version of that, by the way. That's a tremendous idea, and you can get that at the City of Grand Rapids website. It's summertime. We have a bit of a break from the heat. We've had a lot of that already, but that's fantastic because that's encouraging folks to visit splash pads. The city pools are open, as we're talking on Monday, June 12th. Let's talk about that, a review of splash pads, city pools, hours and best way, obviously, to use and appreciate and respect the use for other people using those facilities, plus kayaking and canoeing at Riverside, free demo nights, classes. There's just a lot of things going on. And of course, the scooters and bikes are still there. What should people know about the splash pads and the pools, Mayor Bliss?
Yeah, so they are open, which is great.
Yes.
I know some people reached out to me and they're like, why aren't they opening earlier? So I can tell you, it takes a lot of work to get our pools open.
Yes.
We have to hire a lot of lifeguards, as you can imagine, and then just make sure everything is in good working order. So all of our pools and splash pads are open. It's just $1 for the pools for residents. Of course, the splash pads are no cost. Many of them are action, they start when there's motion or there's a button to push. But I encourage people to get out and use those. It's our tax dollars, especially the Parks Millage dollars that help pay for those. And then you're absolutely right. Over the last, especially 2 years, we have increased our recreational offerings for both youth and adults. And we have some you can pay for, and then some that are free. Anyone can come join them. And we have them all throughout the community, downtown parks, public spaces, in our parks. I love that we have the gear library still. So if you need some gear, whether it's you want to use a tent to go camping or a backpack.
I learned that, and I'm trying to think of your recreational department director. I interviewed him on WYCE, and I learned that. And this is a fascinating resource for city residents.
It is.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's called a gear library.
It's called the Gear Library. It's at Roosevelt Park in the lower level of the lodge. And the reason we started this, and we had grant funds to get it off the ground, is that sometimes it can be expensive to buy the equipment that you need to enjoy nature. And so you can go and you can check it out just like a library. We ask that you return it in the same shape that you borrowed it from, and it's available to anyone in our community. So I encourage people to do that. Same thing, get in one of our kayaks or our canoes, get out on the Grand River. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we can help you with that too through our Parks Department.
Absolutely. Real quickly, we've got about a minute left. One of your favorite parks is Amon Park, right?
Oh, yes.
And it just was inducted into the, I love this, Old Growth Forest Network. You have 30 seconds to tell us what that means.
Oh my goodness, you have to go out there. So it's land that was donated years ago that is an old forest, old growth forest. It is absolutely stunning. We have nature trails out there. There's actually a camp out there. We lease some of the space for a camp.
It's Indian Trails Camp, right?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
But it's absolutely beautiful. And the history of that space and the family that donated it, the man who donated it originally just had a real love for nature and believed that as the city grew up, it would need green space and a place of peace to go to get away from the busyness of a city. And so I encourage people to go out. There's a creek that runs through it. The trees are absolutely stunning. And the beautiful, I'm a big fan of parks and green space and nature, but if you don't think it's good for you, there's really good data and science shows that it actually lowers your blood pressure. It helps with your breathing, lowers your cortisol levels. So physically being out in nature actually has a direct impact on your mental health and physical health. I love that.
Mayor Bliss just wrote you a prescription for a visit to Amon Park. Make sure you listen to Dr. Bliss. It's time for our first break. When we come back, I just promoted her. Mayor Bliss will have a conversation with the City of Grand Rapids business developer, AJ Hills. Stick around for that. We've got more of City Connection in just a moment.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push their creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
All right, thank you and welcome back. I'm really delighted today to have with me AJ Hills. He is our business developer at the City of Grand Rapids. I'll start by just talking about him in general because he is not only a city employee, but he is very active in our community, doing great work everywhere he goes, but also leading an important effort in our city to increase our MLBEs. And so, as we get started, how about we just talk about AJ Hills in general. Tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Bliss. Alvin Hills the fourth. I go by AJ, born and raised in Grand Rapids. So both sides of my family have grown up in the Grand Rapids area for about 2 generations now. So as a kid, went through Grand Rapids Public Schools, Southeast Academic Center for K to 12, and then for high school, went to Creston and had a wonderful experience in GRPS. And I was fortunate enough to receive an academic scholarship to Western Michigan University, where I studied business there. And to your point, it was very intentional and a personal decision to return home when I could have really went anywhere else in the country. And the reason for returning home is to help, similar to what you do, try to create a better ecosystem and community for my friends, family, and ultimately all Grand Rapidians. So it's been a blast being home and working for the city. I'm now about 8 years in at the city, so when I look around, I'm kind of a veteran there now amongst those halls, but it has been a delight to work for the city of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, and you didn't start in this role, so tell us a little bit about the different positions you've held
I got to sound like a lot of other people. I started off as an intern. Special thanks to Miss Mary Beth Jokes. She gave me an opportunity, and through that internship, I landed in risk management. That was my first hire at the city, working under Craig Colson, and I handled all of our liability insurance renewals and coverages, but also our small claims process. So whenever someone had hit a pothole or a tree fall on their car, I was the very special guy that they got to yell at. And I always tried to, as much as they were frustrated, calm them down, help them through the process, and hopefully we could try to help remedy some of those damages, but sometimes we couldn't, and at least in those moments that we couldn't, I wanted to at least educate them on why. And for the pothole example, that's a state law, right? So I love to make sure that they get connected to the right agency that they can share some of their frustrations with. So I was there from about 2015 to 2018. Then I was officially hired in this role in 2018 as a business developer.
Yeah, and the role was developed because at the city we have a goal to increase the number of local businesses who are approved at the city to bid on contracts and bid on projects. So a big priority of the City Commission is how do we make sure that we're using tax dollars to support local businesses, especially micro local business enterprises.
You got
Did I
it.
get that
You
right?
got it.
MLBEs.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, at the time, before you were hired in this position, we had a lot of work to do. We didn't have many certified MLBEs. We saw it as a huge opportunity, but we also recognized that the process was a little challenging to get
say the
through.
least.
So you were hired, and ultimately you created the program, and you have been managing it, running it, doing outreach. So why don't you tell us about your role, what you do, what your office does, and the impact. Most importantly, before we get done with this segment, I'd love to hear the impact, because you've had a tremendous impact on this program.
Well, thank you. I'll kind of start with the history of the program. In 2006, due to voters, in Michigan overturning or repealing affirmative action, that ended our race-based or gender-based contracting in the city of Grand Rapids. So we had, always being forward-thinking and innovative as an organization that we are, we had to come up with a new way to target, recruit, incentivize the use of small, local, minority, and women-owned companies, and that was the birth of our micro-local business enterprise program. So from there, it's a race-neutral program, but we're very intentional about all of the companies that we recruit to be a part of that program. And when I was coming over, it was very challenging because of, just to your point, the number of companies that were in there. A lot of them were long-standing companies in engineering or construction based, so I saw a great opportunity to try to bring in more goods and services and professional services companies. And I will have to give you your flowers here. City Manager Mark Washington, the adoption of the strategic plan and actually embedding the MLBE spend into the strategic plan, I would say was very influential, game-changing to the program, because before departments had the choice kind of to utilize MLBE companies and think about them kind of when they like to, but with the birth of the strategic plan, now all departments were going to be asked about their MLBE spend. So kudos to you and City Manager Washington on that. And through that effort and partnerships with local entrepreneur support organizations, we've been able to grow that list, 3 times over, and we're doing great work. And I'll just kind of share how, if there's a local company in the backyard of the city of Grand Rapids or Kenton County, I have to say Kenton County because sometimes people think it's only Grand Rapids, but some of our qualifiers are, first thing, you have to have a primary business address in Kenton County. You have to be in business for at least a year. Say that you're a business owner, you start a new company, and say you want to get registered at 6 months. We do have a process for earlier stage companies or younger companies in a year to be approved as well. They have to register in our financial system, and in order to get paid for work, you have to be in our system, so that's pretty straightforward. We evaluate business size, so not all businesses could get in, and that's important because larger companies who've already developed their customer base and have good cash flow, they're not the intended target of the program. We look for early stage companies that are looking to grow, so we do evaluate their business size based upon their NAICS code, their North American Industry Classification System code. And what that pretty much does, it says for your industry, you're either evaluated at employee size or revenue. So for the sake of this, if it's a concrete provider and the Small Business Administration says, hey, you're a small business up to 10 million, we look to see that your average 3-year revenues are 2.5 million or less upon entry into the program. And one thing that we did do in order to make the process easier for business owners for the final piece is we now work with a CPA for the program, because the final qualifier is that the majority owner's net worth has to be less than $305,500. And when we do outreach to companies, some companies don't have a CPA that they readily work with. So that was a challenge and a barrier to companies before. So our team has now partnered with the CPA, and we also cover all of those costs associated with getting that CPA statement. And some people say, why do you even do the CPA statement? And again, it's to target companies that are and owners that are growing, who don't have the capital necessarily to just go into business and have kind of that blank check that they have readily available. But yeah, so those are the qualifiers. With those 5 things, if you're a primary business office in Kent County, been in business a year, registered in our financial system, meet our business size, and then also the majority owner's net worth is less than that $305,500, you can get qualified. And the beautiful thing that I love about our certification is it's free. So other certifications does have annual renewal fees and costs associated with it, but ours don't. And then also our partners at Grand Rapids Public Schools, Grand Rapids Community College, they honor our MLBE list too. So I always tell vendors, whether you're looking for work with us or some of the other public agencies, it's a great tool to have, and we've seen success in a variety of areas. So construction, and now with our new inclusion plan with economic development that kicked off in 2021. Super excited about that because now we have the ability to ask developers good questions about their intentionality for MLBE, MBE, WBE participation, and we're very happy with the response. Most, well, I think it's all, but I'll just say most for now have always submitted the inclusion plan, share their targets, and we know that there's still challenges in the supply of companies available to do work, but nonetheless, we're always looking for new companies to get in the pipeline and connect them to new opportunities.
Yeah, and you have helped, in addition to doing the day-to-day work and getting out there in community and recruiting folks, you've also informed city policy. So, I remember several years ago getting feedback about the size of our contracts, that some of our contracts were too large for our local businesses to bid on, so we broke them up into multiple contracts. And then we also, a couple years ago, increased our bid discount.
For hyperlocal
and did hyperlocal purchasing. And so now when you bid on a contract, you get a bid discount if you're hyperlocal. And again, that's because of the great work that your department's doing and telling us, look, we can do better, we can incent, we can improve this area. And that's exactly what you've done. So I'm so glad that you highlighted the fact that both GRCC and GRPS recognize our MLBEs, but we've also done work with our private sector to encourage them to also take a look at their own procurement practices and spend their dollars right here in our community and support the businesses that I always say they're really the heart and soul of our local economy.
Absolutely. And as America's been aware of, small businesses help us grow. So to the policy side, from the future of the river to our cannabis engagement to the inclusion plan, the MLB program has grown tremendously, and we're super thankful for all of our partners to help do so. And we're really excited for the future of our local economy and more companies getting opportunities here in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah, well, we're almost out of time for this segment, so I will say again, if you want to learn more, you can reach out to AJ Hills. And what's your contact information?
Oh, yeah. So cell phone 616-729-5802. Email A as in Apple, Hills, HILLS @grcity.us. So definitely, if if phone works better, give me a shout. If email works better, looking forward to connecting.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll take a break, and then we'll be back for some additional questions for AJ.
The Wealthy Theater is Grand Rapids' local movie theater and performance center. Since 1998, it has been a host to nationally touring music groups, local theater performances, and a variety of community events. Today, the Wealthy Theater is not only a landmark community treasure with historic significance, but a pioneer in the infusion of technology and traditional theater. Underneath the elegance and classic sensibility that defines Wealthy Theater, there is a matrix of new technologies. The theater is completely digital and outfitted with cameras and microphones for concerts, theater and comedy troupes, speakers and lecturers, and so much more. Experience all that Wealthy Theater has to offer. And bring a friend. Be surprised by the Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is a world of music. We aim to shine a light on underserved musical artists in a non-commercial format with no advertisements. Volunteers come in to create personalized music programming that broadcasts over the air at 88.1 FM to West Michigan and via the internet to listeners all over the world. These listeners sponsor our efforts, keeping WYCE independent and community-owned. Musicians use the station to broaden their audience and build support for their latest projects by submitting their music to be included in our broadcast and performing live in studio. Businesses find their customers through underwriting, nonprofits inform the community to their mission, and listeners stay informed about local events. We believe that music is a powerful force that creates quality relationships in our community, that speaks to our emotions, and provides the soundtrack to our lives.
And we're back on City Connection. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Phil Tower in this month for Starlin McDermott, the Executive Director of the Community Media Center. And I'm in studio with Mayor Rosalynn Bliss, of course, a regular on City Connection, and also the business developer for the city of Grand Rapids. As you just heard him speak with Mayor Bliss, AJ Hills. They're both with me in this segment to answer some of your questions. City Connection at grcmc.org if you've got a question. We've got a great question. We put AJ in the hot seat.
Yeah,
Well, it's kind of the
yeah.
medium warm, lukewarm seat.
Absolutely.
Nothing. We're not going to throw any hardballs at you. But this is a great question from Brianna. She asked, what is the city doing, AJ, to encourage equitable business growth? Brianna adds, I've seen lots of black-owned businesses open, but so many of them struggle to get the resources to grow and thrive. Brianna, thank you for a terrific question. And AJ, I'll let you
Yeah, I'll
answer
start with that. So the first thing is you could look at me as kind of the connector, right? When any local business is looking for resources, they could give me a call, and I love to have a strategy session with them, right? Understand what opportunities they've already explored or resources that they've already tapped into. And a lot of times I come across they're just disconnected from the ecosystem. So I try my best based upon their need to push them into the right direction. If some companies are looking for small business funding in the form of grants, maybe it's an opportunity to go by Spring GI or Start Garden and do a pitch competition and maybe bring in some money. If it's a cash flow or a payroll challenge, we have community development financial institutions like Grow and others in the community that can help be a bridge to access to capital. In terms of our policy with our inclusion plan, now developers have to make a commitment or share their commitment of minority business and women-owned business spend. So we're doing some good things there, but through our MLB certification, we also offer minority businesses the opportunity to go get certified at the state level. And that is a certification that costs. So it's about, depending on business size, it can range between $300 to $500, and then there's an annual renewal fee. So if they're certified MLB with us, we'll actually cover those costs for them to go on to the Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council and get their MBE certification. And what that does is, number one, it just makes them more attractive to both private and public sector, right? Organizations want to count their minority spend, but in order to do it, they have to have the certification to really add the credibility and whatnot behind it. So we like to help companies not only grow with us, but position themselves to take advantage of opportunities outside our organization.
I really love what you said, AJ. You're a connector, because if a minority-owned business is struggling, they need to speak up. They need to ask. They need to reach out to your office, say, here's what I'm dealing with.
Absolutely.
How can you help me? And it starts there. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. We have a question.
And Phil,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead,
I'll just
Mayor
add
Bliss.
one other thing in addition to what AJ said. We also, several years ago, created, in partnership with a lot of our partners in the community, our equitable economic development strategy and plan.
Absolutely.
And that falls under our economic development department. And so again, the department itself is really led by that equitable economic development plan.
Terrific. We've got another question from Michael this time around. Michael asked for AJ and Mayor Bliss, do we have partnerships with Grand Valley State University, Ferris State, Michigan State, University of Michigan, to keep talent here in West Michigan and specifically in the core of the city? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I actually, that's an area that I'm not as well versed in as far as,
Okay.
the partnerships with the institutions to retain residents. I would have to kind of kick
Well,
that
it's a
over
good
to-
question.
It's a great question.
Because especially if you are starting a business, you need talent and you need resources. And if you want to have a diverse work staff, you need places to look. And that's been an ongoing issue, Mayor Bliss, that talent drain, folks leaving Michigan and cities trying to combat that.
Yeah, and we do. I particularly have really close ties with our local universities and community college and GRPS, obviously with an eye towards supporting students, but also creating a city where they want to stay. So in fact, I meet regularly with all of our presidents of our universities and the president of GRCC. I personally serve on our Promise Zone Authority, so young people who graduate from one of our high schools here in the city, any of the high schools, are eligible for the Promise Scholarship. And then the big thing that we constantly are looking at ways to improve is how do we get students connected to our community, not just to the city, but to companies throughout the city. So a lot of our universities, they have internships, they have co-ops. We take on interns from our universities and from community college at the city, and they end up working in different departments. Some of them we end up hiring. And a lot of our local businesses are doing that as well. And then the city is a member of the Right Place, which is our regional economic development organization, and then also Talent 2025. So the city sits with a lot of the CEOs talking about what can we do in collaboration with one another to keep talent here, but also to support a lot of the nonprofits and the economic development organizations that are supporting entrepreneurs when they have ideas. And I know they're connected even with Grand Valley with the business school. So they'll do pitch nights with students. They'll connect them with businesses right here in our community. And then the city, we do through our Smart Zone and other funding support Stark Garden, MSU Innovation Lab. And so we have kind of more formal partnerships, I would say, with funding attached as well.
Terrific. Let's move on to another question. This one's from Greg. Greg asked, how do you engage with the local citizens, not just businesses, to help ensure that their needs and concerns are taken into account when it comes to pursuing economic development opportunities? Kind of a multi-level question there. AJ?
Yeah, well, I could see that happening in a variety of ways. When we think about if a new development is coming into your neighborhood, there's always a variety of listening sessions that are conducted for the developer who's moving into town, right? They need to understand what the residents want, what they don't want, and that's always an opportunity for local residents to speak into the process. Also, opportunities like Commission Night Out, right, tomorrow, where you could come share some of your thoughts, your ideas, your concerns about economic development, and there's there's ears there that could listen to that. And we have a new community engagement manager that we also hired in the Office of Equity and Engagement, who's really scaling up the framework, so every city department will engage in a more uniform and similar fashion and more methodically. So we're only going to get better at engagement now that we have an official team member who kind of manages it for the entire organization. So there's a variety of opportunities that citizens could share their ideas and concerns with us, but we also, we have to make sure that we're meeting citizens where they are, so we could, get their feedback, so we could bring it back to policy. But we'll love to always have them out at Commission Night Out and other engagement opportunities in the city.
Yeah. And I would add, we also have throughout our neighborhood business districts, we have what's called corridor improvement districts, where they capture a portion of the property tax, the increment property tax for that district, and then they make decisions on how to reinvest those dollars into that business district. And on all of those corridor improvement districts, we have business owners from that district, but also residents. And so that is another kind of, I'd say, more structured forum in
absolutely.
every single one of our neighborhood business districts where residents can get involved and get engaged really about what's happening in that neighborhood business district, whether it's Southtown or Granville or Michigan Street or the North Quarter or the West Side here. All of those have SIDS.
And Phil, I'll just add to that point. That was an awesome addition, Mayor. This on our website. So any, the area that you live in, you can find out what corridor improvement district is there. Their meetings are public. You can attend, and that's a more formal way to share your thoughts.
And what I'm hearing both Mayor Bliss and AJ say clearly is they're welcoming your input, and that's really important to know that they want to hear from you. We've got a question from Karen. Karen asks, what measures do you have in place to track and evaluate the impact of economic development initiatives on the city's overall budget? It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Mayor Bliss, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I'll start with that, and then maybe AJ wants to speak to how many MLBEs we have now and how we support them and look at annual spend with MLBEs. So specifically for economic development tools or incentives that we give, typically it's a property tax incentive. So we will abate property tax, or we will allow a developer to capture some of the property tax that is created based on that development. So if it's an asphalt parking lot, it's really not generating any taxes, but with a building there that, let's say it's apartments or a mixed-use building, the property tax value of that will increase, and then the developer can capture a portion of that increase to help pay for the investment. So through our economic development department, any incentive that we give, whether it's a brownfield, obsolete property, even our industrial, so sometimes with big companies, we'll give them a tax break on the equipment that they put in that company. So it's an industrial facilities exemption for certificate. Our economic development department, they will track every year to show that whatever the developer promised, that they're meeting those goals. So if they said, I'm going to create 20 jobs, they'll go back and they'll make sure that they created those jobs and at what pay scale.
Got it.
And then what we're able to do is we're able to capture and say, okay, we abated this much property tax, but we generated this much in income tax. So the city of Grand Rapids, we are largely an income tax city. So if you live or work in the city of Grand Rapids, you pay an income tax, and that's where we get the vast majority of our general operating fund dollars or tax dollars. The property tax that we capture, a very small portion of it goes to support the city budget. And so we're willing to abate some of the property tax if if you look at the numbers, we're able to generate a lot more in income tax than what we abated in property tax, which actually has a positive impact on our overall budget. And then when that abatement is done, 100% of those property tax dollars that were generated by that investment, also a portion of that comes back to the city. All of that is captured through our economic development department.
Okay. A good explanation from Mayor Bliss. And one thing real quickly, you mentioned MLBE.
Yeah.
For our listeners, I had to throw the acronym flag on that.
Absolutely.
You city types just love to throw
Yeah.
those out. Help our viewers understand MLBE.
Micro Local Business Enterprise, and it's our internal certification.
Okay.
So our MLB certification, I'm not sure if they caught the segment before, but there's qualifying criteria. You must have your primary business address in Kent County, been in business for at least a year, register in our financial system, meet our business size, and then also the net worth threshold to be certified. And then once certified, to Mayor Bliss's point, now you have incentive to be utilized on construction projects. If you bid with us directly to supply us paper and pens, you'll get a discount. And for those who may not be familiar with city government, we typically look for the best quality service at the best price. So
Sure.
You want to make sure that your bottom line is competitive when other bidders are competing with you, so you could land the contract. But overall, from an organization standpoint, it's always good to look at the numbers of city spend, state spend, MLBE spend, and while economic development is doing some great things, we also look at our own spending through a lens of equity internally. So departments have to do an equity budget submission. So when we do budget every time, fiscally, each department has to say how they're going to have an equitable budget process or a project within their budget process as well. So it's not just us asking developers and private sector, how are they going to be equitable? Our own departments have to go through the same process as well.
Yeah, and you can find the report on the MLB East Bend and the work that we've done also at the city.
Terrific. We're needing to take another quick break. We'll continue with another segment here on City Connection on GRTV. Stay right with us.
How do you build a strong local food economy? Meet Chris. Chris is opening Osteria Rosa, a locally sourced Italian restaurant in a building brought back to life by 616 Development. But he doesn't know any local farmers to supply him with food year-round. This is Melissa. Melissa runs the Fulton Street Farmers Market and publishes a long list, even in the dead of winter, of available produce, meats, bakery goods, and more on the Rapidian. This is Amy. Amy wants to do more to support the farmers and her local food economy. Amy talks to Melissa, who introduces her to farmers at the Fulton Street Farmers Market, and Amy, in turn, publishes their stories, also on the Rapidian. Chris hears about the Rapidian and now has access to a local grocery list and information that he needs to make connections with local farmers. He feeds his patrons with local food year-round. Connections multiply. Meals are shared. A stronger local food economy is built.
And welcome back to City Connection. I'm Phil Tower, Station Manager at WYCE, in this month for the Executive Director of the Community Media Center, Starla McDermott. Your regular host for this program, Mayor Bliss, is with me as usual, and we're going to call this our speed round because we have a lot to talk about here. Real quickly, we've got a great question from Juan, but we touched on this earlier, Mayor Bliss. Dash services have expanded. What should our viewers know about that?
Yeah, so one, they should know that they should try it out.
Good point.
So the Dash route, we just changed it based on community feedback. And one of the things we consistently heard is folks wanted to be able to take the Dash over to Leonard Street. So we completely changed the route and made it a circular route. And we made it so that it arrives every 15 minutes and it goes both ways. So you can jump on a Dash downtown and go all the way to Bridge Street or Leonard Street, back over on the west side, all the way out to the market. And it's a circular route that will take you around. And we expanded the hours, so it goes later into the evening on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. And it's still at no cost. We pay for it out of our parking services, and we do it in partnership with the Rapid.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We also have exciting news for the city. City of Grand Rapids recently received gold status for its environmental leadership, the Michigan Green Communities program. And that's a perfect segue for the question from Juan. Juan asked Mayor Bliss, the city has priorities set on environmental sustainability. How are you working in your role to encourage new businesses to look at the cost and implications of locating to environmentally or moving to environmentally friendly practices?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the city really is leading the charge. I'm really proud of the work that we've done to really reduce our own carbon footprint. We've made a lot of investments to do that, in addition to converting our streetlights to LED, building a solar array at Lake Michigan, filtration plant, building the biodigester, which is now creating renewable natural gas. That's going into our Rapid buses. And then we are an active participant with District 2030, which is with a lot of private buildings and companies throughout downtown and throughout the city of Grand Rapids, all working to reduce our carbon footprint. And then for new builds and new developers, we consistently ask about their building practices, Of course, there's requirements in the building code, but what you're seeing is many of the builders are looking at how they can build more green buildings. So one of the buildings that, one of the developments we recently approved is an all-electric building. Last week I was at a ribbon cutting for Habitat for Humanity. Again, all 3 of the homes are electric. So you're seeing more and more of that. We can't force developers to do it, but we continue to push and to educate and to encourage.
Great to know that. The next question we have is from Tom, and Tom is talking about folks who not only work downtown but come downtown, addressing safety concerns, concerns about people asking for money, homelessness, a number of challenges, but just general overall safety. Can you talk about how the city of Grand Rapids is addressing that? There have been some concerns raised in the past. Where are we on that right now, Mayor Bliss?
Yeah, so safety, not just downtown, but safety throughout our entire city is a top priority.
Sure.
And you know, when we have consistent complaints about certain illegal behaviors, of course, we want to be able to respond as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, our department, our police department, is short-staffed right now, so we can't have the kind of presence that we want to have throughout the entire city. But we have been working really closely with partners, both for downtown and in some of our neighborhoods where we've had hotspots, to do what we can to increase both real safety and the perception of safety, which is just as important. So specifically downtown, we've worked with Downtown Grand Rapids Inc., and we now have private security that walks around downtown. People likely have seen them if they're out downtown. We also have worked really closely with a number of our partners to identify resources that we can utilize to support the individuals who are downtown, who are unsheltered. We have taken a close look. We currently have a lot of ordinances on our books to address some of the problematic behaviors, illegal behaviors that we've seen downtown. Tomorrow at our meeting, we actually are looking at making some amendments to provide some clarifying language both in our nuisance code and within our current code around loitering and accosting. That should help create some more clarity for our police officers to respond more quickly. And then we're working with our business community and nonprofit community to provide services to address the needs of individuals who maybe for whatever reason are not taking advantage of the shelter beds that we have. And then we're working with the county as they, I don't know if you saw recently, they opened up, or they did the wall breaking for the crisis stabilization unit. Mm-hmm. That will be available. That's 18 beds available for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. That will be available hopefully by the end of this year, and we'll also work with them. And then I'll just add one other thing, because it's a long answer, because there's lots of different efforts that we're doing because it's a complex issue. We're working with our homeless outreach team. They have just started and created a fusion center, which is a location during the day that individuals can go to get the help and support they need to hopefully move them into transitional housing or permanent supportive housing.
Yeah, that's a great idea for a future episode of City Connection. Have them on the program. And I hope the person who asked that question, I hope you can tell by Mayor Bliss's answer, there's a lot there. It's a complex issue, but the city is actively working on it. Some encouraging things that will be addressed tomorrow night in the Commission Night Out, so make sure you are there if you'd like to hear more about that. Question from Bryant, who is new to Grand Rapids. He's a drone pilot by trade. Does the city have any ordinances, Mayor Bliss, regarding safe drone takeoff zones? That's a good question. And who should Bryant speak with to learn about safe places to fly his drone?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously there's federal guidelines for drones. I am not aware of updates to our ordinances. So our fire department has a drone. We're in the process right now of our police department potentially exploring having access to drones for their work. I know that there are some locations where people use drones, but I don't necessarily think we have anything specifically written in ordinances. So what I would encourage you to do is reach out to my office. So email me at mayor@grcity.us. I will follow up and get you the information.
Terrific. Question from Lowell. I've just put in charge of my block party for my block. can you tell me, Mayor Bliss, about any resources for putting on a small-scale block party? Good question,
Yeah.
Lowell.
It's a great question, and I love block parties, and I love that they've come back since COVID. So please, if you're
Indeed.
listening, think about doing a block party. They're great fun. I would encourage you to contact our events department if you need any assistance. We try to make it very low barrier to do block parties. We want to encourage our neighbors to do those. All you have to do is get permission to block off a portion of the street. It's usually a pretty easy process. Our application is online. You can find out everything online. We don't have financial resources, but we do try to make it very low cost in order to do that.
Terrific. Quick question from Warren, Mayor Bliss. He asked, is there a city standard for crosswalk and curb design? Warren's son is visually impaired and he uses a cane to get around. And when he was downtown last weekend, he said there were at least 10 different crossings to navigate that made it challenging for his son to go in certain areas. Can you talk about crosswalk and the curb design?
Yeah, we actually do, and we work really closely with disability advocates.
Yes, they do. I know that.
We actually have a contract with them. We do walks with them. Our planning department does it, our streets department does it, our engineer, and we get feedback. So if you could email my office and send me those intersections or crosswalks, and we will go out and look at them. This is a really important issue to me personally, as well as it's a priority at the city. And we want to hear that feedback so that we can make improvements, because we do have standards. Some of our older crosswalks or intersections may need to be updated. Maybe we just haven't gotten to those yet. So please let me know what ones those are, because we do not want you to have that kind of experience.
Right, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And I can underscore the fact that I have been in those conversations with Mayor Bliss and disability advocates. She does take this issue very seriously, and we have come a long way, trust me, in terms of accessibility. City is on the right path there. Real quickly, we've got about 30 seconds left, and it's got to be a speed answer.
Okay.
Your neighborhood match fund projects, one you want to mention real quickly.
Yes. Well, if you have an idea, please apply. We're accepting applications through the end of this month, anywhere from $500 to $5,000. If you have a great idea, please submit it. We love those projects. You see them all over our city. One of my favorite ones are the little libraries that you see popping
Yes.
up all throughout neighborhoods.
I love that.
Many of them have been funded through our neighborhood match fund.
All right, terrific. There's your plug. Go get it and make it happen. Thank you, Mayor Bliss.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to City Connection. Also, thanks to AJ Hills, business developer for the city of Grand Rapids, on our show today. Thanks for the great questions. We hope you'll join us back again soon. For Starla McDermott, I'm Phil Tower from WICE. We'll catch you again real soon.